into hot water again after they did the very thing they purport to be against, undermining women's success. Joy Behar stunned viewers when she said Donald Trump's press secretary, 27-year-old Karoline Leavitt, only secured her position because of her good looks.
I think she's probably been put in there because, according to Donald Trump, she's a 10. You know that's what it is.
I want to be clear, though. It's not her first job. It was her first press briefing. She worked in the previous Trump administration.
The comment was bizarre, especially coming from Joy Behar, who is as woke as they come and positions herself as a champion of feminism. This online commentator said, disgusting Joy Behar of The View accuses Karoline Leavitt of being hired only because Donald Trump thought she was a 10.
Patriotism is not exclusionary. It's not a relic. It is the very thing that allows us to have this conversation. And if honoring those who have given their lives for this country is seen as harmful, then perhaps the real problem isn't the symbol, but the way we've been taught to see it. The tension in the room thickened. The journalist then turned his gaze to Caitlyn, clearly expecting her to distance herself from the controversy. You're an athlete, Caitlyn.
Now to the cackling witch herself, Joy Behar from The View, whose jealousy is something to behold.
I think she's probably been put in there because, according to Donald Trump, she's a 10. You know that's what it is.
I want to be here is Joy objectifying the White House press secretary, saying she only has the job because
your career depends on sponsorships, endorsements, public support. Do you really want to be caught up in something so polarizing? Caitlyn could have played it safe. She could have said something vague, something neutral, and something that wouldn't ruffle feathers. Instead, she stepped closer to Karoline. I play basketball because I love the game, she said, but I also love this country, and I love the people who have given me the opportunity to play it. That's what this jacket represents. If that's controversial, then maybe we need to ask why. A hushed murmur rippled through the crowd. The journalist folded his arms, unimpressed. So you're saying you don't care about how others might interpret these symbols? That their pain doesn't matter? Caitlyn let out a slow breath. What I'm saying is that honoring the sacrifices of those who came before us doesn't erase the struggles we still need to face today. We can do both. We can remember where we came from and still work toward a better future. Those things aren't opposites. They're connected. For a moment, there was only silence. Then, from the front row, a slow, deliberate clap broke through. A decorated veteran, one of the honorees of the evening, had risen to his feet. He was a man in his late 70s, his posture still straight despite the weight of years. He looked at Karoline, then at Caitlyn, and finally at the journalist. I fought for this country, he said, his voice firm but measured. I lost friends for it, and I will tell you this. When I see young people like them standing up for what they believe in, I don't see division. I see hope. The room shifted. People who had been hesitant now joined in the applause. One by one, more began to rise from their seats until nearly half the room was standing. Not everyone clapped. Some remained seated, whispering among themselves. Some reporters frantically typed, preparing their spin.
Oh, please. His opponents are saying to this very day the same rhetoric that led to those two attempts. The second attempted on President Trump's life echoed the sentiment that President Trump is a democracy. And if you're a deranged lunatic and you're mentally ill, you will believe that lie. And yes, you will take political, like we have seen in two instances against President Trump. Last week, Tim Walz and Kamala Harris said that everyone who showed up to President Trump's rally at Madison Square Garden was a... That's despicable, dangerous, divisive rhetoric that is spewed by the Democrat Party every single day. And I'm so sick and tired of the media pointing the finger at Donald Trump and saying that he is sowing division in this country. He is not. The media is for pushing hoaxes like the one that you all pushed today, and the Democrat Party is for pushing lies about him. But the good news is Americans don't buy it. And that's why today President Trump is more popular than he has been since 2016, because people don't trust the media.
In a now viral scorched earth video.
But it didn't matter. Karoline and Caitlyn had done something no one expected. They hadn't backed down. And now, the entire country was about to watch what happened next. Within minutes, the internet erupted. Clips from the event spread rapidly, uploaded and reshared across every platform. News outlets scrambled to cover the moment, each telling a different version of the story. Some portrayed Karoline and Caitlyn as brave figures standing up for their beliefs, while others framed them as reckless, divisive, and out of touch. Veterans organizations, military families, and ordinary citizens flooded social media with messages of support. Parents who had lost sons and daughters in service posted pictures, thanking them for standing up when so many others backed down. At the same time, backlash was swift and severe. Caitlyn's sponsors reacted cautiously. Some issued statements about respecting all viewpoints, while others went silent. Behind closed doors, a few even reconsidered their deals. Karoline faced pressure from another front. Political figures who once aligned with her distanced themselves, careful not to get caught in the storm. 3 days after the gala, Karoline and Caitlyn finally spoke in private. They had both been pulled into a whirlwind. Neither of them had expected this. But one thing was clear. This moment was bigger than them. And now they had to decide what to do next. The grand ballroom of the Washington Liberty Hotel buzzed with anticipation. Tonight was the American Honor Gala, an annual event celebrating veterans, first responders, and those who had dedicated their lives to serving their country. The guest list was packed with politicians, military officials, celebrities, and journalists, all waiting for the main event. At the center of attention were two women from completely different worlds, Karoline Leavitt and Caitlin Clark. Karoline was a rising star in politics, known for her unapologetic stance on patriotism and national values. Despite her young age, she had already made a name for herself in Washington, admired by many, but considered too bold by those who saw her as controversial. Caitlyn, on the other hand, was a basketball icon, one of the most celebrated athletes of her generation. She had transcended sports, becoming a role model for millions. Her talent was undeniable, but what truly set her apart was her ability to inspire, to stand for something greater than just the game. Neither of them expected to cross paths in such a public setting, yet tonight, they were both being honored for their contributions to American culture and leadership. For Karoline, it was her relentless advocacy for veterans and her efforts to preserve national identity. For Caitlyn, it was her work supporting military families and honoring fallen heroes.
I would like this young lady this is her first job, I would like her to do a little homework. Because she said something yesterday that really pissed me off. And that was, she said, there will be no wokeness here.
Oh, yeah.
Let me explain something to you. Because without that wokeness, you might not have that job.
Yeah.
Because women were not invited to that table. Women were not invited to many tables in this nation. The reason we fought and busted our behinds to make sure that you didn't have to worry about this. And now to hear you talk about it and to hear anybody talk about the wokeness was put in place for a reason. Because Black people couldn't get into colleges. Because women could not get into the colleges they wanted to go to. This is all women. Yeah. See, this is not Black, Asian women. This is all women. Women were not invited to this party. It was a man's world, and we busted our asses to make sure that this was a person's world.
This commentator said, Whoopi is mansplaining the press secretary job to Karoline Leavitt. Hilarious.
As the event began, the lights dimmed and the national Siwantia anthem played. The audience rose to their feet in unison, some placing their hands over their hearts, others clasping them in silent reverence. In the front row, Karoline placed a hand over a folded American flag in her lap, one that had been given to her family when her grandfather, a World War II veteran, passed away. To her, this flag was more than just cloth. It was a symbol of sacrifice, a reminder of everything her family had fought to preserve. On stage, Caitlyn stood beside the other honorees, wearing a warm-up jacket embroidered with the words, "Honor, the Fallen." It was a simple tribute, something she had worn before at charity games. But tonight, it carried a weight she had not anticipated. As the anthem ended, murmurs spread through the crowd. A well-known media personality, seated at the VIP table, suddenly stood and spoke loudly enough for the entire room to hear. Karoline, Caitlyn, some say these symbols represent a past that divides us rather than unites us. In today's world, isn't it time we move forward instead of clinging to outdated ideas of patriotism? The words cut through the air like a blade. Some in the audience nodded in agreement, while others exchanged uncomfortable glances. A few journalists smirked, sensing a headline in the making. Caitlyn turned her head slightly toward Karoline. Their eyes met for a fraction of a second, and they both knew exactly what was happening. This wasn't a question.
She's probably been put in there because, according to Donald Trump, she's a 10. You know that's what it is.
I want to be clear, though. It's not her first job. It was her first press briefing. She worked in the previous Trump administration.
It was a trap. And now they had a choice to make. The room held its breath, waiting for their response. Karoline slowly stood, the folded flag still clutched in her hands. Her expression remained calm, but there was a quiet fire in her eyes as she looked directly at the journalist who had spoken. Her voice was steady and unwavering. This flag was handed to my grandfather's family as a final honor for his service. It is not outdated. It is not a political statement.